Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your Washington Commanders update, and I am your host, CWall, checking in as I do each and every single week to give you the latest and greatest in hot topics featuring the Washington Commanders. Recovering the Washington Commanders loss to the Miami Dolphins. We normally play What's Your One Word to describe the game and how you were feeling about the game. But hey, listen, Commanders fans, I really feel like I need to do a wellness check on you all. I feel like a wellness check must be had. I feel like a wellness check must be conducted. So, with that being said, tell me what's your one word for how you're feeling right now. How are you doing? Are you okay? Because I'm feeling like you're not okay. I'm feeling like there's some disturbance going on. Let me know, Cameron, Kimberly, Nasdaq, CWall Chaplin, John Adams. Let me know how you're doing. I'm just gonna put it up here. You know, I'm putting it all up here. I'm putting everything up here. Okay. How's everybody? How you hanging in there? If at all. And if you are just tuning in, you're watching from the Culture from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders update. This is a live Bowie television recording. Drop in the chat how you're doing, Washington Commanders fans, because I'm feeling like you're not doing well. Understandably so. Understandably so. Even Mama Waller has been sick of it. Okay, she has been wanting me to leave games. She's been wanting me to get up out of the press box. She's like, get out of there. You know, listen. Bill Knox has put away his tranquilizers. Listen. And all those things. Hey, listen, here's the reality. In real life, let's just be honest. It's bad. It's awful. And when you really look at it, I share this with you all the time. If you watch other teams play, you really realize just how bad this team actually is on Sundays and every other day that they play. It's quite unfortunate. And even looking at the records, and when you see that there are teams that are 4-8 that are still in the hunt based on how things are going on with the league right now or with different teams, and then you realize the teams that are 4-8 but are still in the hunt are teams that beat the Washington Commanders, it gets sad. It gets even worse. And I'm just being honest. I think it's time. You just got to be real about it. Because I saw, and I love the comment about the draft position. Yeah, that's all well and good. But hey, when you're part of a winning team and a winning organization, they could care less about draft position. Draft position targets and looking at draft position is typically the mindset of losers, and when you're on a losing team, and that doesn't feel good, because until we are confirmed on who is doing the actual drafting, I'm not convinced that that's a good thing to be excited about. I need to know who's doing the picking at this point, right? I think that's a very, very important point. Draft position only matters if you do what's right at the pick. So that's kind of how it is. And hey, some people make great draft decisions later in the draft, in the middle of the draft. You just never know. You just never can tell. But hey, if that's something that helps you to feel like you can live to watch another game, do what you got to do, because it's a rough watch every Sunday. So, with that being said, why not relive some of it? Why don't we? And if you just tune in, make sure you hit that love button. You can still have time to share this show with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends, because you for certain, absolutely want to be able to watch these next videos. These next videos are the press conferences. I want to go through the after game press conferences. I didn't do this last week because I said I didn't have time. We're not doing all that after. Well, we did Coach Rivera's. And we're going to do Coach Rivera's in a moment. I want you all to drop in the chat everything in response to Coach Rivera's after game presser. We're going to listen. It's about 5 minutes or so. I want you to drop in the chat a few things. How you felt when you were watching the game and thought that Jack Del Rio was still on the sideline. Because as I told you all last week, you fired Jack Del Rio, so what? Okay. That might have made a difference, may have believed you a bit, had that firing come earlier in the season, perhaps after the Chicago Bears. At the same token, I also shared with you all that this really wasn't a big deal in firing Jack Del Rio because, hey, when you look at who was the next best option internally to be the defensive coordinator, knowing that that answer was Ron Rivera, I think everyone saw yesterday what the end result would be of him being that defensive coordinator. So drop in the chat as you're watching this video and watching this presser. We're going to take a look at Sam Howell's as well. And we're going to go through some of the comments, some of the things that I've shared on my page with you all, and kind of dissect some of all of this together. And then start to think about other coaches, other things that the ownership group needs to be thinking about. All of those things that really piece together what makes up a winning organization. And then while you're thinking about that, I want you all to be putting all these things in the chat. Everything that you're thinking when the responses come in, what needs to happen to really craft a winning organization. And I've been seeing this a lot. And it's around rebuilding and starting from scratch and starting over. And Commanders fans, let me tell you something. I really want everybody to think if they can sit through and stomach a true rebuild process, a true rebuild process. Because, hey, listen, there are some things that can happen and things can change in a year. They can. They can change. They can make a shift in 1 year. They absolutely can. But if you strip it all down and start completely over, I would really encourage people to think if they can stomach a rebuild after 30 years of what the franchise has been. And everyone screams rebuild, but it's not until you get in it that you realize you may not want to be in it. So think about those things. Want to hear your reactions as a chat voiceover, if you will, of Coach Ron Rivera's after game press conference.
Well, probably the biggest disappointment more than anything else, we gave up 2 explosives that we technically should have not. We should have been in a better position than we were, and we didn't do that.
You talked a lot about growth with this team in the last 7 weeks. Is it hard to say that after a game like today?
It is, John. To be frank about it, yes. When you spot 21 points to a very good football team, you're gonna struggle to win a game, and you can't do the things that we did and expect to win.
You mentioned the explosive, the first one with Tyreek. What did you see on that play?
Well, we should have been tighter. His release, we didn't squeeze him on the release. We didn't push into him, and then we just got to make sure we got somebody up over the top.
With regards to Sam, what did you think today? And with Jacoby coming in, was that just a matter of
that was just a matter. The game was pretty much salted away, and just let Jacoby get out there and finish it up for us.
Now you guys are entering the bye week. What was kind of the message in that locker room, guys?
Well, we got a quarter of the season left to go. We're bringing them in next week, and we'll work through the next few days and just make sure you got to understand we got a quarter of a season left to play, and expect everybody to show up and play.
Obviously, facing adversity right now, coaching staff, players. What's the makeup right now? Like, what's everybody feeling?
Well, disappointed. I mean, you lose a game, and unfortunately, we really didn't give ourselves a chance. We made too many mistakes, and we've got to make sure we can limit those.
Any update on Brian Robinson?
Just the hamstring tightened up, and we just thought obviously to be smart about it. We didn't want to go out and pull it, so we sat him down.
Ron, it seems like the offense, at least from a production standpoint, is kind of ground to a halt these last couple of weeks. You played good defenses, but what's going on your end that has caused that?
Well, we've missed a couple opportunities. I mean, we got to be better up front. In certain areas, we've done some good things. We do enough to move the ball, and then you get a little bit behind, and then how your opponent attacks you becomes different.
Ron, at the beginning of the season, there was a thought that, from a talent standpoint, there had been some improvements, whether through draft or free agency. And I wonder what you think about that now. Do you think that they're still there, or is there more work to be done?
I think there's a little bit of work left to be done, but I do think we have some talent in some spots. I think some guys are most certainly gifted enough to help us win football games, and I think there's opportunities, but we've missed those opportunities. We didn't make plays when we had opportunities to, and there were some that were pretty good examples today of just missed opportunities. You can't do that. You just can't do that in this league, especially against really good teams. You've got to be able to handle those situations, circumstances, and when it does come to you, you got to make sure you make those plays when they're around to be made. And then again, from the coaching aspect, we just got to make sure we're putting them in the best position to have success.
And we know that Dallas and Miami are good teams. Are you surprised at how big the gap seems to be these last 2 weeks?
I'm disappointed that it looks that way. I really am.
There's still 4 games left. I know these guys are professionals, but do you worry about
No.
losing them?
I don't worry about that. So I really don't, Nikki. I mean, they're professionals. They have a job to do. They've got 4 games left to play, and and I told them in there I expect them to come out and do their best.
Terry had 3 targets, no catches. Why was that, and what do you make of that?
Well, that you'll have to look at the tape and go through what the play call is and see exactly what Sam's reads were and what was happening.
What made Tua especially so difficult today? What was he doing?
Well, probably the hardest part for us more than anything else was, again, we've got to get a little bit more consistent pressure on the quarterback. It's crazy, but there were 2 major plays that were made that kind of throws things a little bit out of whack. You give it those kind of explosives, it's tough to rebound from it.
Take 3 more.
Coach, I know you kind of broke.
So there was a lot that was said there, and drop in the chat with your overall thoughts are. And if you are just tuning in, you're watching from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update. I'm your host, CWall, and this is a live Bowie television recording. Make sure if you are watching from Facebook, you all hit that love button, and you can still share this show with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends. If you are tuned in from YouTube, hit that thumbs up, and you can share the link to your Washington Commanders loving family and friends. We're going to get into a lot of discussion. Just watched a snippet from head coach Ron Rivera's after game press conference. We're going to get into Sam Howell's after game press conference in a moment. Couple different things that I saw in the chat, and we wanted to make sure we highlighted those comments from Coach Rivera's overall demeanor, from what's a couple more years in a rebuild, to someone acknowledging, hey, Josh Harris is very patient. He's going to tear this thing all the way down. I've said this on the show before. I will say it again, and I will say it again, and I'm going to say it again. Go and see what Josh Harris did to his other teams. Check it out. Watch it. Understand it. Understand the timeline. Understand all of those things. Now, it's not necessarily a direct one-to-one, right? It's not always a one size fits all for all of the things, but just to understand a bit more of his demeanor and what he's thinking about. If you all haven't already, and I plan maybe to go through this in another episode in the future, but if you haven't already, my media colleague, Nikki Javala from the Washington Post, definitely tweeted and wrote about some of Josh Harris's thoughts on the future of the organization and what it's going to take and what it's going to look like. And he's definitely made comments around it being a process and to be patient. And in order to move forward, you got to take a step back. And this is why I continue to bring this up, because yes, hey, totally needs some changes for sure. But I want to compare this to the Wizards real quick. And now we know the Wizards weren't winning anything. They weren't doing anything either, right? We know this. But what we also know is that I've learned this recently with the Washington Wizards. We knew that the team was rebuilding. You saw it in the moves that they made. The new leaders told you that that is exactly what they were doing. Yet and still, fans are in an uproar. They can't understand it. They're talking about how bad the team is. They're talking about all the things that the leadership team actually told you was going to happen. They've actually told you this was going to happen. And yet it is still being met with such opposition when the proof is right there in your face and right there right there. So I want to just say, all right, everybody, okay, everybody screaming rebuild. Just take a few deep breaths. Because if that is in fact what happens and it goes completely down the shreds, and this is another trust the process, this is going to suck. Let me just go ahead and say it out loud. It's going to be bad. It really is. If it's a true rebuild, if it's true in all facts of the matter. Now, if there is hope of trying to rebuild in a way where things can move quickly, you're going to have to make some hey, we're done. If that is the case, truly the case, because you can do a rebuild a multitude of ways. And if you end up doing a rebuild in the way where it is act now, then you have to understand that there is very little room for development. So getting players that you still got to develop, getting players that then have to get accustomed to the system, all of that. So you have to already get staff and players that understand the assignment and can act now. They're very clear on the goals and what's to happen. We're not doing a whole lot. If depending on which way they're going, player development, that's old news. That's yesterday's news. We got to get something up in here in the next 2 to 3 years. Who gonna rock with me? Because that's gonna be a whole lot of sleepless nights for this organization in order to get to that point, because that's what it takes. But I just want to caution people, because it's already been bad for 30. If everybody got time for 5 plus more, then you are right. But if you want to see something move immediately and they decide not to go that route, it could go up and down. Seriously. I want to go back to coach's comments around the explosive plays. Now we can go, this is a topic that I've been discussing on the show for years, right? Where it just seemed like the defense just wasn't prepared for the good players on the other end of the scrimmage line. It just seemed like they forgot, that's who they were playing, or they just didn't really know, or they really weren't paying attention. And one thing I shared last week on the show was, you can go online right now and see who your favorite team's opponents are, I believe, for the next 3 or so years, at least 3. You can see the opponents. You won't see the schedule, but you'll absolutely see the opponents. So you could literally be planning right now for your next couple of years. Seriously. Excellent planning teams always do. So then why is it on game day that it appears they're just not ready for the moment? What is that about? I mean, this has been going on for a very long time. And I wanted to say it out loud so that I just got it off my chest and said I said it again. But I want to go to some of the things that I shared on my page, and let's react to these together. And if you just tuned in, you still got time to hit the love button and share this show with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends. Saw this tweet from one of my Washington Post media colleagues that in Tyreek Hill's after game press conference shared this about the man coverage, Quan Martin on his 78-yard touchdown. Whether he was surprised to see it. Not for real, man, because those guys are great at what they do and they also get paid. But at some point, it's like, man, I don't know, man. I just appreciate it. Thanks for not respecting me, I guess. And, you know, if you all know my colleague from Fox Sports 1340, Felix Trammell, Felix and I typically sit next to each other or near each other. And Felix made such a great point yesterday in the media press box. He said, you know, and this goes back to the point of Terry. Hey, listen, if you're not going to use Terry, or if you're not going to necessarily use Diami, I don't care. These players are used to, when they were younger, they played on both sides of the ball. If you don't have a DB that's necessarily fast enough to keep up with Cheetah, that's all right. Because most people aren't fast enough to keep up with Cheetah. That is what it is. But at least get somebody that can run with Cheetah, because at least there's a distraction, or somebody can actually try to bat the ball away. I mean, at least appear to look like you're doing something different or out of the ordinary to potentially even try to stop the fastest man in the NFL. I mean, give it a shot. At least try. It can't possibly hurt to at least try some different things. I couldn't believe it. You know, that first one, and I want to go to a couple of the comments here. And I told you all last week, love button fire emoji, if you all remember me sharing, and I think it was last Monday's episode, where I said the game where I knew the season was over. Does everybody know which game that was when I said this isn't what we thought it was going to be? Not real sure what else they're going to do to get out of this hole, but it's probably over. Love button fire emoji if you remember me sharing which game it was. And I see here in the chat you already got it. That's right. You watched the show, Kimberly. That's exactly right. First one. Because it was that bad where I knew this was it. And I see this comment here. I want to address it. A competent coaching staff with this exact roster would have made the playoffs this year. A competent GM using our draft capital and cap space to fix the O-line almost guarantees a 2024 playoff spot. Here's one thing that I keep hearing and seeing things about the GM and all of this. I think that what needs to be abundantly clear, I believe that Coach Rivera has been clear. I believe Martin Mayhew has been clear as well. But in Coach Ron Rivera's year being here, he has complete autonomy in decision-making on the free agency picks as well as the draft picks. He makes the final decision. Head coach Ron Rivera, he makes the final decision. And he has been making the final decision. Of course, he takes the evaluation and the talent evaluators and everybody, and he confers with his coordinators and everybody. Yes. But the decision maker, the final decision, is with head coach Ron Rivera. I want that to be known and clear. He has said it quite a bit throughout the years and made it very clear. I think in previous years when Dan Snyder still owned the team, folks still thought that Dan was pulling the strings behind the curtain and was still making the decisions. But no. It is coach. It's coach. He makes all the decisions. So not certain what the new ownership group and what model they will go with in terms of the structure of the organization in the decision-making authority in that way. But I do think that is something to be paid attention to, because yes, while we use these terminologies and these roles sometimes synonymously across the board, it is not always synonymous. It's not always used in that way. So I think that I really wanted to share that with you all, because it is something to for sure pay attention to and watch in terms of the decision making of this ownership group and what the correct structure will be for the team, as well as then along with that structure where the decision making authority lies. Please make a note of that. Love button, fire emoji if you are going to make that note, to be watching for the actual real life structure of the organization. Because we say words and we think they mean one thing in this space, but that's not the definition of it in this space. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. Now, if we jump really quick, let's go back to comments from Dolphins players. Another colleague from the Washington Post, Tremel Rags, shout out to Tremel, he posted some of the content and comments from Dolphins linebacker David Long. And while I'm posting these and we're talking through them out loud, definitely drop in the chat what your thoughts are on what Long had to say in terms of the offense and defending the Washington Commanders offense. He says, all you really have to do to defend this team is just be disciplined. They kind of struggle with the routine parts. When we watch them play, their best stuff was when Hal was scrambling or they moved the pocket and just let him try to make plays. There's going to be rollouts and breaking the pocket, but if you just stay on your man or find somebody when you don't have nobody, it's really easy to defeat stuff like that. Here's some more comments from Dolphins linebacker David Long. 8, 24, 23. So we know, we see it right here in parentheses, that's Brian Robinson Jr., Antonio Gibson, Chris Rodriguez Jr. are all good backs. Of course, they have weapons outside, but I think the run game stood out to me the most. Robinson's a powerful runner. He can make people miss and break a lot of tackles. Gibson can do a lot of the same things. Like, they don't really run it a lot, but I think that's where they are dangerous. The backs are like that. They had our respect. Also, here's some more from Miami Dolphins linebacker David Long. They have some good dudes. Terry, Curtis Samuel's cool too, but I wouldn't say that they have a dominant dude that you come in saying, oh, we got to make sure to stop, bro. You know, kind of like, and this is me, you know, adding on some, you know, some. I read that and I said, oh, so kind of like how they should have been looking at Tyreek Hill.